We're starting a major new project in this episode of CityBilly Adventures. Just not the one we expected. Stay tuned.
My wife and I grew up in the suburbs of Northeast Ohio, and we started our family there too. Then a few years ago, we stumbled into this dilapidated estate property that just had way too much potential to pass up. Follow along as we DIY our way through creating our dream estate, one project at a time. A wise man once said, "You're from the city, but you like hillbilly things." You're a CityBilly.
So hopefully you've been following along, as Mrs. CityBilly and I are starting our 5th year renovating this estate property. And if you haven't, howefully the intro gave you the basic idea. Mrs. CityBilly and I are basically living out the plot of the movie Money Pit.
How's it going?
Fine. Sit on your face.
The ceiling seems to be coming down in the bedroom.
In 2018, my wife and I escaped the suburbs and purchased this 9,000 square foot foreclosure for pennies on the dollar. The catch was that the house hadn't been updated in decades, and we were going to have to remodel the entire thing. The house was built with the finest things money could buy in 1970. By the time we moved in 50 years later, the house needed a head-to-toe overhaul. We're doing the majority of the work ourselves, so we broke the projects up into phases. Phase 1 was living in the basement while we gutted and remodeled the entire first floor. Phase 1 took 2 years, but for the most part it went according to plan.
I'm really kicking myself for not starting this channel sooner to document all the different projects we've done so far. But you can check out videos on how we built a home office and a hidden speakeasy bar behind a bookcase. Now those were some of our first attempts at making videos, so the editing is pretty rough. But they were some pretty cool projects.
After Phase 1 was complete, we moved into our new space and began mapping out what projects we were going to tackle next. We spent a year upgrading our backyard lake, and then we turned our eyes toward building a workshop in this 20 by 30 outbuilding. There's a large space in the basement that we think will eventually be a perfect second master suite for out-of-town family or for when our parents get old.
Our plan was to overhaul that bedroom first, including adding a bathroom. Then we'd move down there while we gutted and remodeled this actual master suite.
The crown jewel of this oversized house is the 1,000 square foot master suite. It has the finest luxury items 1970 had to offer, complete with the pink jacuzzi straight out of Scarface.
Oh, come on, you do it too. So we figured that this master suite project was about 3 years down the road on our remodel schedule. I mean, the pink accents and carpeted everything is ridiculous looking, but at least it's structurally sound. Or at least we thought.
Recently, the ceiling decided it had had enough and decided to come crashing down. Thankfully, no one was in the room when it happened. And when I said our life is basically the plot of Money Pit, this was pretty much our exact reactions when the ceiling collapsed.
Not only was the drywall nailed instead of screwed, but somebody had the great idea to cover all the drywall, walls and ceiling, with about a ½ inch of stucco. All that weight was eventually just too much to hold, and here we are. It's good to have plans, but this time we had to make some adjustments.
My in-laws came over and helped us clean up the initial mess that the ceiling collapse caused. We took a few weeks off to regroup, but winter was fast approaching, and we had to get the ceiling back up so we could turn the furnace on. Step 1 was to gut the rest of the room. We covered up the window and sliding door with some scrap plywood to protect the glass from falling drywall.
All right, time to make a mess.
Okay!
Once we got the rest of the ceiling down, we bagged up the blown insulation so we could reuse it later. I asked this guy Joe to keep track of how many 55-gallon trash bags we filled up.
Somewhere between 700 billion and $1.3 billion.
That's the leader of the free world right there. Look, I can tell you it was a lot. We filled up a lot of bags.
Then we were finally able to take our masks off, and we got to work tearing down the walls. The kids got home just in time to help out.
Just make sure that there's nothing behind what you're hitting, okay?
Alright, so we're finishing up the demo, and one of the last areas left to do is Mrs. CityBilly's walk-in closet. I always tell people that if we had all the money in the world, we wouldn't build a bedroom nearly this big. There's just a lot of wasted space. And so I don't expect any sympathy from anybody when I talk about one of the challenges that we're working through is trying to figure out what to do with all the unused open space that we have in the bedroom. But that's the cross we bear. So one of the things we came up with was to bump this closet out into the bedroom. That'll almost double its size, and it'll help us reconfigure the layout of the bedroom. So this wall has to come out before the garbage truck gets here tomorrow morning.
The next morning, the kids got in a quick pump before the garbage truck arrived. Then we used gravity to our advantage and got rid of all the old drywall. That 14-foot dump trailer was just the right size. Now that the demo was complete, it was time to start remaking this giant room into the bedroom of our dreams. We started by framing out our new red room.
False.
I mean, Mrs. CityBilly's new giant walk-in closet. Then we started hanging the new drywall. This drywall lift has paid for itself several times over. Hanging the biggest sheets possible makes the least amount of seams. And while Mrs. CityBilly and I worked on drywall, my father-in-law slaved away behind the scenes rewiring the lights, outlets, and switches. If you don't have a father-in-law, I highly recommend getting one. When the ceiling was done, we were finally able to drag those 10 bajillion bags of insulation back into the attic. I used a leaf blower to spread it around. What a mess. Whew.
Alright, so the last major change that we're going to make to the layout of the bedroom is to update this oversized brick chimney. We're going to keep the fireplace, but as you can see, it's off-center and there's a ton of extra brick on this side. We discussed several different ways to make this area look better. Our hope was that we could take all the brick out and replace it with wood studs and drywall. But when we got up into the attic, we learned that there's a concrete block chimney directly behind the brick. So taking the brick out isn't going to gain us any space in the bedroom. So our new plan is to just drywall over the brick, and we'll update the center section with some paint and a new mantle. So the first thing we have to do is take off the hearth where the new drywall is going to go. Then we'll add the new studs using liquid nails and Tapcon screws.
Don't let this montage make you think this job was easy. I definitely underestimated how much elbow grease this job was going to take. Right about here is where I realized I should have just spent $50 and rented a jackhammer. But it was too late now, so I had to just keep plugging away. And it was a great opportunity for my son to learn a thing or two about hard work and perseverance.
Whew.
A lot of work?
Yeah, my ear's still kind of ringing.
Once the hearth demo was finished, I re-bricked the edge to make it match the other side. And let me just say that masonry work is definitely not my strong suit. I watched a bunch of videos in preparation for this job, and I learned a lot watching Stu Crompton's channel on YouTube. He's got excellent content if you want to learn anything about masonry. One thing I learned after trying it myself is that brickwork is way harder than those guys make it look. I think my biggest problem was I couldn't get the mortar to the right consistency. Finding that perfect blend of not too dry and not too wet was driving me insane. And it also didn't help that I laid the first brick in the wrong spot and had to start all over. So I apologize to all you brick masons out there who watched this disaster of a brick job. I felt like a 5-year-old playing in a sandbox the whole time. Once the mortar set up a bit, I used a wet sponge to wash everything down, and it didn't turn out as terrible as I initially feared. My saving grace is that we're eventually going to paint everything, so you won't notice that terrible mortar job as much.
So now that the hearth is finished, we can attach wood studs to the brick so we can drywall over it.
And now that all the drywall was up, Mrs. CityBilly took over and worked her mudding magic. Now I know everybody has a type. Big, small, blonde, brunette. Well, my type just happens to be a brunette who's not afraid to get dirty.
Alright, so I think that's enough montages for one video. I'm really happy with all the work that we got done in this episode, but there's still a ton more work left to do. In the next episode, I'm building a farmhouse bed frame so we can finally move back up here. And if you're super bored, you can check out this full tutorial on how we covered our brick fireplace with drywall. Thank you so much for watching, and we'll see you soon. We're starting a major new project today here on CityBilly. The house needed a total
He can't even read.
Then we'd move down there while we completely redid this. So we figured that the bedroom project was about 3 years down the road We figured the bedroom project was about 3 years down the road on our remodel.
Do it. Here, take a step forward and like donkey kick behind you. There you go. It's
All right, time to make a mess. All right, time to make a mess. All right, time to make a mess. Who would have thought this mask would be so difficult? So not only was the entire house, but somebody had the great idea to cover all the walls, but somebody had the great idea to cover all the drywall.
Is this the part or is it later when we drop all the screws in the carpet?
Both.
Did you do it already?
And so I don't expect any sympathy when I say one of the things we came up with was to bump this closet out further into the bedroom. That'll Then we'll add the studs using liquid nails. Come on. Helps if you measure right. Hopefully the intro gave you the basic idea. Forgot my line.
come on, I can't work with this guy.
My bad.